Senator Paul, let me begin with a threshold question for you. This election was not stolen. Do you accept that fact?
Well, what I would say is that the debate over whether or not there was fraud should occur. We never had any presentation in court where we actually looked at the evidence. Most of the cases were thrown out for lack of standing, which is a procedural way of not actually hearing the question. There were several states in which the law was changed by the Secretary of State and not the state legislature. To me, those are clearly unconstitutional, and I think there's still a chance that those actually do finally work their way up to the Supreme Court. Courts traditionally and historically don't like to hear election questions. But yes, were there people who voted twice? Were there dead people who voted? Were there illegal aliens who voted? Yes, and we should get to the bottom of it. I'll give you an example. In my state, when we had a Democrat Secretary of State, she refused, even under federal order, to purge the rolls of illegal voters. We got a Republican Secretary of State, and he purged the rolls.
Senator Paul,
I have to difference, and those things
I have to stop you there. No election is perfect, but there were 86 challenges filed by President Trump and his allies in court. All were dismissed. Every state certified the results after investigations, counts, and recounts. The Department of Justice, led by William Barr, said there's no widespread evidence of fraud. Can't you just say the words, this election was not stolen?
What I would suggest is that if we want greater confidence in our elections, and 75% of Republicans agree with me, is that we do need to look at election integrity, and we do need to see if we can restore confidence in the elections.
Well, 75% of Republicans agree with you because they were fed a big lie by President Trump and his supporters who say the election was stolen. Why can't you say,
well, I think where you make, I think where you make a mistake, hey, George, where you make a mistake is that people coming from the liberal side like you immediately say everything's a lie instead of saying there are two sides to everything. Historically, what would happen is if I said that I thought there was fraud, you would interview someone else who said there wasn't. But now you insert yourself in the middle and say the absolute fact is that everything I'm saying is a lie.
Well, because, Senator, I said what the president said was a lie because he said, hold on a second. He said the election was stolen. This election was not stolen. The results were certified in every single state after counts and recounts.
You're saying that absolutely you're saying there was no fraud and it's all been investigated. That's just not true.
It's not what I said, sir. I said the Department of Justice found no evidence. Let me finish my point.
You said something that was not true. You say we're all liars. You're just simply saying we're all liars.
I said it was a lie that the election was stolen.
Premise that you're right and we're wrong. Well, let's talk about the specifics of it. In Wisconsin, tens of thousands of absentee votes had only the name on them and no address. Historically, those were thrown out. This time they weren't. They made special accommodations because they said, oh, it's a pandemic, and people forgot what their address was. So they changed the law after the fact. That is wrong. That's unconstitutional. And I plan on spending the next 2 years going around state to state and fixing these problems. And I won't be cowed by liberals in the media who say, there's no evidence here and you're a liar if you talk about election fraud. No, let's have an open debate. It's a free country.
There is no widespread evidence of election fraud that overturned the results. That was stated as well by the Department of Justice, led by President Trump's Attorney General. In Wisconsin, there were counts and recounts.
Actually, it was never studied. Even that's not true. Even that's not true.
William Barr said that directly.
Barr said that, but there was. Yes, he said that. Yes, that was a pronouncement. There has been no examination, thorough examination of all the states to see what problems we had and see if they could fix them. Now, let me say, to be clear, I voted to certify the state electors because I think it would be wrong for Congress to overturn that. But at the same time, I'm not willing just to sit here and say, oh, everybody on the Republican side is a liar and there is no fraud. No, there were lots of problems, and there were secretaries of state who illegally changed the law, and that needs to be fixed. And I'm going to work hard to fix it, and I won't be cowed by people saying, oh, you're a liar. That's the problem with the media today, is they say all Republicans are liars and everything we say is a lie. There are two sides to every story. Interview somebody on the other side, but don't insert yourself into the story to say we're all liars because we did some fraud in the election.
There are not two sides to the story. This has been looked at in every single state. The election results were certified in every single state.
There are two sides to every story. George, you're forgetting who you are. You're forgetting who you are as a journalist. If you think there's only one side, you're inserting yourself into the story to say I'm a liar because I want to look at election fraud and I want to look at secretaries of state who illegally changed the voter laws without the permission of their state legislatures. That is incontrovertible. It happened. And you can't just sweep that under the rug and say, oh, nothing to see here and everybody's a liar and you're a fool if you bring this up. stop. You're inserting yourself into the story. A journalist would hear both sides, and there are two sides to this story.
I'm standing by facts. There are not two sides to facts. I did not say that this was a perfect election. I said the results were certified. I said it was not stolen. It is a lie to say
people are liars. You're saying people are liars if they want to investigate what happened in the election. Should we investigate the fact that tens of thousands of absentee ballots did not have addresses on them and normally were disqualified, but this time they were counted? Should we examine that? I don't know whether it affected the election or not, but I have an open mind, and if we actually examine this and we find out it didn't, that's fine, but it still should be fixed.
There can be more investigations. The investigations that have taken place have shown there is not enough fraud to change the results of this election. That has been certified by every state. It was stated by the Justice Department and the Attorney General.
And I accepted the state certifications, but it doesn't mean that I think that there wasn't fraud and that there weren't problems that have to be investigated, and it doesn't mean that the law wasn't broken. I believe in Pennsylvania they broke the law, and I believe if that ever would get a real hearing in the Supreme Court, it was denied for standing. It wasn't actually taken up. If it were taken up, I do believe that the Supreme Court would overrule and say that they did break the law illegally.
I asked you a very simple question. Was the election stolen or not?
I think there was a great deal of evidence of fraud and changing of the election laws illegally, and I think a thorough investigation is warranted.
Senator Paul, thanks for your time.
Why on earth would you want more guns in schools after what's happened today?
Here's why, Piers. If we could suddenly make all guns disappear, I'd have a different position. But I spend a lot of time thinking about this and reading about it. I teach a class at the law school level called Gun Control Seminar, and I get a new group of law students every term, and we discuss this in detail. And the simple facts are guns exist. They are essentially 1800s technology. Even semi-automatics came into being in the late 1800s. They're easy to make. They're not going anywhere. They last several human lifetimes with minimal maintenance. So since guns exist, and we know for a fact that the only way to stop an evil person, like the person you were discussing earlier in the show, is to shoot him, or he's going to shoot himself.
Hang on. This is exactly the argument that I've been hearing ever since I've joined CNN. I joined on air about a week after Gabby Giffords, a congresswoman, was shot in the head. Right? Ever since then, we've had the Sikh temple, the Aurora incident. We had the shopping mall last week. Guy downstairs shot in the head from our New York bureau, and so on and so on and so on. And the argument I keep hearing is, well, if everybody else was armed, it wouldn't happen. It's a load of total hogwash, isn't it? No. If everyone had been armed at that movie theatre, twice as many people would have been killed in the mayhem that erupted.
Give an example where people have stopped these attacks and a bystander's been hit. You can't give me one example where a bystander's been hit by a permit holder.
The Empire State Building.
Where a permit holder.
Can I just...
The proof of the pudding
you don't
see
mass
industrialized country in the world,
gun shows
other than the United States,
ranges.
They have reasonable gun control laws, and they have 100 people a year, not 9,000 or 10,000 a year killed by guns.
Guys, listen,
Japan,
but it was lower before gun control there.
Japan adopted strong gun control laws.
And has almost zero crime.
And their homicide rate plummeted.
But the point is, the gun control didn't change it.
In Scotland, in Dunblane, in 1996, there was a very similar school shooting.
Right.
Just an awful situation. 16 young children killed exactly as they were today.
You know what
here.
the two of the
And as a result of this, they brought in a handgun ban. 162,000 handguns were handed in. Right? It is time for an amnesty.
Murder rates went
in
up.
America. There was an amnesty in Australia as well.
Murder rates went up.
There are about 35 murders a year in Britain.
But it was lower for another
There
reason.
are nearly 12,000 murders a year from guns in this country.
The point is,
when are you guys going to focus on that? And stop telling me the answer is more guns. It is not the answer.
Look, listen.
It was higher than it was after the ban. It was higher than it was before the ban.
So you want more guns, not less?
I'm saying
300 million guns in America isn't enough for you.
When you ban guns,
how many more kids have to die before you guys say we want less guns, not more?
I'm upset about this. He asked me a question.
I want to tell you something.
Let him answer the question.
I'm upset because I worry that the gun control laws that you're pushing have killed people. that
what
when
a
you
load of nonsense.
look, you have to explain.
Nonsense.
You
An
have
average of 35 killings from guns in Britain a year.
No,
in a place that banned handguns.
But it
Here,
was lower
no ban
before
on these
they
guns.
had the gun control
12,000
laws.
people a year die from gun murders.
Look, there are lots of differences across countries. You have to
Can I please have
understand
the opportunity to say
that
something
if
without
you
screaming?
ban,
I mean,
Yeah, there is. I'm sorry, but
no, I want the. I just need to.
I've been debating this all week. Following the Bob Costas thing, the shopping mall and so on, following Aurora. I've been debating it for months, if not 2 years. I'm so frustrated. I'm so furious that these kids have been blown away again with legally acquired weapons. Some boy who's got problems takes his mother's 3 weapons, including this ridiculous assault rifle, and goes into school and kills his kids. And you guys on the gun lobby still want to tell me the answer is more guns.
Look,
Thank you so much, Congressman Cawthorn. I am so excited for your leadership on this issue tonight. Thank you for making time to address the American people. Mr. Speaker, there are 3 people who come to mind when I think of people who cannot even give their money away. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Do you remember when her donations were returned to her by members of Congress because they don't want to be associated with her? Harvey Weinstein and Joe Biden. Those 3 cannot even give money away. In fact, by July 3rd, 25 states across America will have rejected President Biden's federal unemployment benefit bonuses. I meet with organizations every day that request funds for worthwhile endeavors. Sadly, America is $28 trillion in debt and can't afford to spend the money on many of these worthy causes. But leave it to Joe Biden to try to spend money in a way that actually hurts our economy and is rejected by Republican and Democrat governors across our entire country. That's a special level of basement incompetency. We've got 9.3 million unfilled jobs, and I hear it back home. Businesses can't get people back to work because they are making more to sit at home on the couch. They would rather watch Dave Portnoy eat a slice of pizza. But then again, maybe that's not his viewers. Maybe it's more of the folks sitting back watching Joy Behar and The View cackle and demonize our country and all of our worthwhile efforts to restore dignity in this nation. The Biden regime is literally incentivizing laziness. But then again, they set that example on a regular basis, calling it quits in the middle of the day. When's the last time the president hasn't called a lid before his afternoon snack? In my home state of Colorado, many corporations are offering bonuses that small businesses can't afford. We're seeing massive signing bonuses from $10,000 to $30,000 for utility and HVAC workers, and that's simply unsustainable. According to the Colorado Restaurant Association, more than 90% of restaurants are having issues finding workers. I'm one of them. I've had employees say, I cannot work more than 2 days a week. I cannot exceed 12 hours of work because it will cut in to my benefits. That is un-American. Joe Biden is quickly becoming the greatest threat to small businesses since Fauci's fraud. While small businesses across my district, across America, are struggling to find workers, struggling to stay open, Joe Biden is struggling to stay awake. I'm calling on this administration to end these excessive federal COVID payouts and stop de-incentivizing work. Madison Cawthorn, Congressman, thank you for your leadership on this issue. And Mr. Speaker, I yield.